Hello and welcome to prepressguide.com. My name is Ben and prepressguide.com is the leading training guide for graphic designers wanting to learn the secrets of prepress. This tutorial is going to cover getting a quote. So you've got a job, it's all organised, ready to print. First of all, how should you supply your files? There's two answers to this. If you're doing a short run job, so a small job like a business card or a rack card or maybe a small flyer, supply it as a print ready PDF with bleed, all the fonts embedded, everything in CMYK. If you want to see the full settings on how you should create a PDF, you'll need to purchase the freelance edition from the prepressguide.com website. If the job's more complex, if it's a multi-page brochure, or you don't think you've got it quite right, supply it as native files to the printer. When you supply native files, you also need to include all the fonts and links you've used. The reason why this is covered in the getting a quote section is you need to let the printer know how you're going to supply the files. If you're supplying print ready PDF files, the assumption is that they're print ready. They're not going to charge you much artwork time for getting the job organised. They'll take your PDF, they'll put it straight into their printer's RIP system and they'll print it. If they have to fix things, it's going to cost a little bit more and you're going to end up with a little bill that's not included in your quote. And often, as a graphic designer, you're going to struggle to get the client to pay for this because you've probably passed on the quote to your client, added your markup. So if the printer's going to charge you more after the fact, it's going to come out of your end, which you should try and avoid. Letting the printer know how you're going to supply it is a good idea because it will include that in the quotes to start with. If you're unsure, say, I've done the best job I can, I'm going to supply you with a native file, fonts and links. Please change anything you need to change to get the file right. And they'll include 20 minutes, 15 minutes worth of artwork time in the quote, which is good because you can get your client to pay for that. The next thing you need to cover is the quantity required. So that could be 500 business cards, 1,000 business cards, or please quote for multiple quantities, 250, 500, and 1,000 business cards. This is a good way to go, especially if your client doesn't know how much money they want to spend, because it'll give them lots of options. And we'll often see that for the big quantities, there's not a lot of difference between them, between the prices. The next thing you need to do is let them know the size of the document. So for a business card in Europe, it would be 90 mils by 55 mils. Normally the first measurement you give is the width measurement. So 90 by 55 mils would imply the business card is a landscape business card. Or if you're talking about a portrait business card, it would be 55 by 90 mils. The next thing you need to let them know is the stock and the weight. Now stocks are going to come in a gloss, which is glossy, a matte, which is matte, uncoated, which means the paper hasn't been calendared to put a coating on it. So this is like what you print from your office printer at home, or satin. Satin's somewhere between a gloss and a matte, and it's quite a popular finish. If you're unsure, ask your printer for some colour samples. The weight of that refers to how thick the paper is. It's referred to as weight because the paper is effectively weighed as an A0 sheet, and its weight, as in a 300 gram sheet, literally weighs 300 grams when it's at A0 size. For leadheads and that type of stationery, probably somewhere between 90 and 100 gram is ideal. Business cards would be 300 to 350. Brochures like threefold brochures, threefold DL brochure, flyer, might be 160 to 200. If you get stuck, ask the printer, describe the job, say what you're going to use it for, and they'll give you a recommendation. The next thing you need to let them know is whether it's colour on both sides, colour on one side, black on the other, black on both, or colour on one side, blank on the other. The reason is this is that you pay more. You're paying for each colour copy, especially if you're doing digital printing. So if you can do a colour click on one side and a black click on the other side of the sheet by having black and white on one side of your job and colour on the other, it's going to be cheaper to print. May not be as pretty looking, but it's going to be cheaper to print. You obviously need to let them know whether the document's single-sided or double-sided, along with any special instructions. Do you want the job to have rounded corners, or would you like the job folded in half, or scored, creased? Finally, you need to let them know the dispatch. So, courier to this client. If you're getting the printer to deliver the job, that's great. It's going to save you work, but keep in mind it's going to come with the printer's unique label on it. The client could potentially get annoyed with this if you have given them the impression that you're going to be printing the job. So it's best to just be honest with the client and say, I'm a graphic designer. However, I do know a printer and I can organise the print brokering for you. Once you've got all your questions together, type them up into an email and send it off to 2 to 3 printers to get a fair price comparison. Don't be too pushy. It's going to take probably 24 to 36 hours for them to prepare a quote. And especially if it's a small job, they're probably going to give it not a huge amount of priority. And that's nothing to be offended by. It's just fair business. If they're doing a quote that they could potentially earn $1,000 profit on, and your job could potentially earn them $50 profit, which is probably what we're talking about for small starting work, they're going to give the $1,000 job more priority to get it right. Sending the email out is the easier option because you know, especially starting out, that everything's covered. You're not going to get flustered on the phone. And there's little point calling them on the phone anyway because very few people have set prices that will actually give you a quote on the phone. And with email, you're going to get something in writing that you can refer back to later in case you have any problems on the invoicing. Thank you for listening to this tutorial on how to get a quote and the information you'll need to provide in the free novice edition from prepressguide.com. If you'd like to learn more about prepress, please purchase either the freelancer or the agency edition, and that will really extend your knowledge. Thank you for listening.